Okay, so this lesson is on bearings, and I'm going to split the video up in two. So in this first video, we're just going to deal with understanding bearings, and then in the second video, we'll deal with doing trigonometry problems using bearings. So there's two main bearings that we need to know about. We need to know about compass bearings, and we need to know about true bearings. So compass bearings are always given with reference to either north or south, and then in the direction of either east or west. So we can have an example here such as south 60 degrees east. That means if we started by facing south and turned 60 degrees towards the east, that would give us our bearing. Whereas a true bearing is always taken from north and is always 3 digits. It has to be 3 digits. So if it was a true bearing, if we had an angle of say 10 degrees, it'd be, as a true bearing, it'd be written as 020 degrees. And that way we know that it's a true bearing. Okay. So as well as that, there's some basic directions you need to understand. North, south, east and west, I would expect most of you can probably handle that by now. But you do need to be comfortable with the ones that fall in between, being northeast, southeast, southwest and northwest. The others aren't as important in this course, but you just need to know that northeast is halfway between north and east. So obviously between north and east is a right angle. So that this angle to northeast, that must be 45 degrees because that's half of 90 degrees. Okay. So as we go along here, we'll have a go at some compass bearings first. So a compass bearing, that's the one where we have to say where do we start from, north or south. So in this particular case, A is closer to north than it is to south. So always choose the one it's closer to. So it's north of the east-west axis, so it's going to be north first, and we're moving 50 degrees away from north, and we have to say in what direction we're moving, and we're moving in the direction of east. North 50 degrees west would be out here somewhere. Okay, so for the next option, for the next question, we've got this angle down here. Now, importantly, we don't really want that angle. What we need is we need to know this angle here, because we start at south or north. For compass bearings, we can't start at east or west, we've got to start at south. So the first thing we've got to think of, well, if it's 90 degrees between west and south, then the angle we're interested in is going to be 90 minus 43. So that's going to be 47 degrees. So now that's not the answer, of course, that's just what we've just found out what that angle in there is. We haven't actually worked it out yet. So we're going to start at south. We're going to head 47 degrees towards west. Okay, and that's how we do a compass bearing for that one. Okay, for this next one, once again, they've given us the wrong angle. We have to start at either north or south, whichever one's closer. So we know this angle there, but what we need to know is this angle in here. And so to find that angle there, that's going to be 90 degrees minus 51. And so that's going to be 39 degrees. Okay, so if we know that angle from north towards A is 39 degrees, then we're going to say we're starting at north and we're moving 39 degrees towards the west. Once again, wrong angle's been provided on this one, and it's kind of, you know, I talk about it in class quite a bit. It's one of those basic tricks that math teachers use. We don't have a lot of tricks up our sleeves when it comes to questions. So be very careful when you're asked a compass bearing question. Chances are you'll be given the wrong angle, not the right angle. So just make sure that you're not just using the number that's given, that you think about what that number represents. So in this particular case, to find out that angle, we're going to have to go 90 minus 23, and that's going to be 67 degrees. So that's not the answer though, so we're going to start at south, we're going to move 67 degrees towards east. Okay, now in my experience, compass bearings come up a bit, but true bearings tend to come up more. So do make sure you understand true bearings. So these are always measured from north in a clockwise direction. So if I have a north line here, and I've got a spot A out here that I'm measuring the angle to, the angle is going to be measured all the way around from north to the angle to A. So we always measure from north. So if I had an example, for instance, where it's a very poor drawing here, but if I had an example where we were looking for this angle here, we would be expressing that as this big angle here, not as this little one in here. Always from north in a clockwise direction. And there's always 3 degrees. So the true bearing of south, we'll go on to that now. So south, if you think about it, a straight line is 180 degrees. You can think of it that way. Obviously, it's 90 degrees between each of north, south, east, and west. So 90 degrees from north to east, another 90 degrees from east to south. But you should be pretty comfortable with understanding that south is 180 degrees. Okay, for the next one, which is northwest, obviously we know, if we think about it, there's a 90-degree angle from north around to east. There's a 90-degree angle from east around to south. There's another 90-degree angle from south around to west. So what we're actually going to have is 3 lots of 90 degrees plus then 45 more degrees, half of, because we're trying to go out here to northwest. And so what we're measuring isn't this angle in here, we're measuring this angle there. So 3 lots of 90 is 270, 270 plus 45, you can use your calculator, but that's 315 degrees. Okay. Now, really important in compass questions is the word from. Really heavily important is the word from. So always important that we understand where we're getting our bearings from and to. Read the question, read the question, read the question. So for this one, we want to know the bearing of A from O. So if we're from O, that means we're standing at O. So in this particular case, we're actually just interested in this angle here, and it's a given one. So that's going to be 050 degrees. Why is there a 0 in front? Because we're giving it as a true bearing. In this one, A from O, so still we're standing at O, which is in the center there. You don't always be standing in the center. Don't just assume you're going to be standing in the center. You might be asked to work it out the other way. So in this case, A from O, we know that it's 43 degrees less than west. So essentially west would be 270 degrees. So what we've actually got here is 270 degrees minus 43 is going to give us our answer. And just to illustrate that you can use your calculator here, I'll have a go and use the calculator in this particular example. So 270 minus 43 gives us 227 degrees. Okay, I'm assuming it doesn't say on these ones, but we'll just assume we're looking at A from O. So now we're interested in this angle around here. Now we already just worked out that around to west is 270 degrees, so it's going to be 270 degrees plus 51 degrees, because that's what is written under there. I might just change that angle illustration slightly so we can still see that it is 51 degrees. So 270 plus 51, that's going to be 21 more than 300, so 321 degrees. And then in this next example, we're interested in this angle in here, always from north in a clockwise direction. So that's going to be 90 plus 23 degrees. So that's going to be 113 degrees. Now, this next example, I think, no, that's all it is. It's not a hard one at all. Okay, so I'll talk about this one and I'll change the question slightly because I think we need to look at this a bit differently. So A is southeast of O. Find the bearing of A from O. So we're starting at O and we're interested in this angle here. So that's going to be 90 plus 45 degrees. So that is going to equal 135 degrees. Okay, so what's missing there is part B, which I should have had in there. Now part B would have said O from A. And it's very important to understand these sorts of questions because it's more likely the kind of questions you might get asked as a higher level question. So you can see I've drawn myself a little north line at the point of A. And so what ends up generally happening is we tend to end up with co-interior angles. Sometimes you might use alternate angles as well, but we tend to end up with co-interior angles. So if we look at this angle we worked out for part A, that angle of 135 degrees is co-interior with this little green angle I've got on this side. So if we remember back to our parallel lines, which you would have started dealing with probably in year 7, when I've got two little angles inside a set of parallel lines, obviously I'll put some arrows on to say they're parallel, then those two are going to add up to 180 degrees. So the way to find out the bearing of O from A is first, if we knew what this angle here in green was, we'd be able to work out the bearing. That's all the information we need. And given that we know that that angle is co-interior to 135, so we're going to be able to work out from there. So if they're co-interior, they're supplementary, it means they add up to 180. So 135 degrees plus, I'll call it X, whatever that angle is going to equal 180. We take away 135 from both sides, and we're going to end up with, what's that, 45 degrees. Now, at that point, we know that this part in here is 45 degrees. That green, that's that green angle up there is 45 degrees, but that's not the bearing. Of course, the bearing is measured the other way. It's measured around from north to our line. So we're interested in that red bearing. So what we're essentially going to have is either 360 minus 45, you can think about it, or 270 plus 45. Either way, the bearing is going to be (315 degrees). Okay, so just understand, whenever you're asked to find a bearing from a spot that currently doesn't have a north line on it, you can draw one on, and usually then you'll either use alternate or co-interior angles, usually co-interior angles, to work out what the bearing is. Now for the remaining questions, we're that's not so much a, well, we're still only dealing with bearings with those questions. I will split the video anyway, but we'll come back and talk about those examples 4 and 5 in the next video.